What's up, guys? Welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding. And as you guys know, I've been posting resistance band workouts on the channel, but I'm still able to train in the gym, even though I'm not sure if the Olympia is going to be at the same date. I still have that goal in mind, so I'm very fortunate to be able to train. So what I suggest you guys do, if you cannot train at a gym, look at your workout split and look at workouts like this one and see if you want to implement something like this whenever you can start to work out again. So really start looking at the design of your workout split, see if it can improve, and the moment you can enter the gym again, then you can attack it full force. But anyway, I'm training the legs right here, starting out with the hamstrings as pretty much always, because the hamstrings for me are a weak point, and we all pretty much notice that for taller guys, and I am one of the taller guys of the classic physique class at almost 6'3". That means for most guys that the hamstrings are lacking, and usually that's because whenever we do a squat, because of our structure, we cannot go as deep, say for the leg press or even the hack squat. The deeper we go, the more stress automatically shifts towards the lower back. And at the bottom of a movement, that's where more the glutes and the hamstrings are involved. From the top to about 75%, so 3/4 down, it's mostly the quads being stretched, but then at the very bottom, that's where the glutes mostly come in and some of the hamstrings as well. So if you're always not able to go into those depths, it's going to be difficult to target the hamstrings using the normal compound exercises like the squat. So what I like to do is target them isolation wise. So I like to always do an isolation movement for the legs, especially the hamstrings, to make sure that I fatigue them first before doing the heavier compounds. Now on these leg curls, I like to go from set number 1 with a lightweight to a heavier and more heavy weight until I reach failure around 10 reps. But I like to keep around 15 reps with the other sets, and then the last set I do a back off set using less weight and go to failure on that one as well. So I go to failure twice on different rep ranges on the lying leg curl to make sure that I target those hamstrings really nicely. And then I go and isolate the quads with the leg extensions. Honestly, I haven't done leg extensions for a good while. I've been doing them lately again, so this is probably the 4th time I've been doing them. Before I just did the lying leg curls and then simply went straight to the heavy compounds. But now I want to pre-fatigue both the hamstrings and the quads so that the compounds actually have more effect on the legs instead of tiring out the oxygen demand or the lower back, the core in general. I just want the legs to be the limiting factor. And whenever a muscle that you want to work is the limiting factor, then you know that that muscle is going to be the one growing the most. If your core is the limiting factor, that's bad news, because then your body is like, well, this movement is not working because the core is the weak point, so we gotta improve the core. And for most people that means bigger obliques, a bigger abdominal area in general, which is not what we want as a bodybuilder. If you look at powerlifters, strongmen, crossfitters, they obviously don't care because a lot of them have bigger cores because they aid a lot in those compound lifts. For bodybuilders, especially for me personally, I like to pre-fatigue those muscles that I actually want to work, so my core and stuff and lower back and the rest of the body doesn't have to work as much before those muscles that I'm working, in this case the legs, are reaching failure. Alright guys, I'm gonna do 1 or 2 more sets of this, then do the compound exercises. Time for the heaviest leg extension set. Let's do it. Now, a lot of people have knee problems when doing leg extensions. I do think it's also because of the way you're sitting on the seat. I'm sitting all the way back, and that puts more pressure, more stress on the muscle and less on the knees. If I would sit all the way forward, there will be a lot more stress on the knees, and I actually tried it once and it did actually hurt my knees. So guys, if you don't like the leg extension because it hurts your knees, sit all the way back with a light weight obviously and try it out and see what it feels like. Okay guys, I just did the leg curls because hamstrings are the weak point. Then leg extensions to pre-exhaust and pump up the quads. Right now we're going to do the close stance leg press. Close stance because it hits the outer quads a little bit more. And also we're going to put the feet lower on the pad to target the quads as well. The higher you put them on there, the more glutes and hamstrings you target, but also the more lower back risk you have of injuring it, which actually happened to me a few weeks ago. So I learned my lesson. I'm going to stick to the actual hamstring exercise to build the hamstrings. I'm going to stick to this one to mainly build the quads, which can never be big enough anyway. So watch and see what I do to make sure that I hit the quads correctly. Let's do it. So as I mentioned, I like to do this with a more narrow stance and putting my feet lower than I used to do. I used to put them quite high because that obviously targeted the hamstrings and glutes more, as I told you guys in the beginning of this video, but that also rounded my lower back. And a rounding lower back on the leg press with almost 500 kilos on there, that's not good for the health of your spine. And I felt that basically the attachment of where my spine goes into my pelvis really hurt, and for about a week I wasn't able to do legs properly. So don't make that same mistake and actually try to do it the way that I'm doing it, putting your feet lower, literally limiting your range of motion, because if you go too low you will automatically feel that it's impossible because it's limited. If you put your feet higher up, then you will actually be able to go a lot lower, and ultimately if you go low enough, the lower back will be rounding to give you that extra range of motion. And for me, this is the perfect range of motion, just 90 degrees. Obviously some people can go lower without impacting their lower back as much, but I have tried it, and if I then go too heavy, it hurts and injures my lower back, which is a nightmare for a bodybuilder. Also, if you look closely, I'm wearing different shoes than I did before, because these shoes are actually weightlifting shoes. Kind of a weird thing to wear weightlifting shoes on a leg press, but for me, the elevated heel gives me some extra range of motion, because otherwise if I wear normal flat shoes, my heel would come off the pad because my ankle flexibility is really bad, which I do need to work on it. But if ankle flexibility limits your range of motion, wearing shoes like this can help you go down a few more inches and allows you to stretch your quads a bit more. And the more your quads are able to stretch, the more growth is able to occur. Now you're also seeing that I'm hitting a certain amount of weight with this leg press. I do always like to do 15 reps on this. I used to do around 10 reps or even 8 reps, but then the weight you're able to do is so heavy and so much pressure on the joints and injury risk on your lower back that I don't do that anymore. I actually like a higher rep range on legs now because it pumps more blood into the legs without actually fatiguing my body overall and without demanding as much oxygen to me before the legs are filling. That's the most important. I want my legs to fill before I'm too tired to finish the set. And also this technique with my feet lower on the pad, it limits the amount of weight I can do. I can do a lot more weight with a wide stance with my feet up on the pad. But this is a new kind of way to do this exercise, and now I have to limit the weight, limit the range of motion just a little bit, allowing for constant tension on the quads, making the quads grow for sure. And what you're also noticing is me wearing knee sleeves, which are actually there to protect the joints. Knee wraps, on the other hand, would actually help lift the weight, which these are not doing. Oh yes, those are the sets, guys. Feel it in the muscle. Not in the lower back, not in the knees, or purely in the quads. Now, this was the heaviest set, Now we're going to do a back off set, which means I'm going to try to do 20 reps with a lighter weight, and just to hit a different rep range to get better pump, better connection, and just another set that makes those muscle fibers die, only to be resurrected again stronger. So let's do that. So, as I said, I just did the heaviest set on the leg press, 15 reps, pretty much going to failure, and now I'm hitting a lighter weight, which I like to call a back off set. After hitting your heaviest set, you simply do another set. Usually you would be done, but nowadays I like to go one step further. I've been doing this for a few months with great progress in strength and muscle growth, because then you go to failure twice. And if you go to failure twice on different rep ranges, you simply hit different muscle fibers in different ways, and that will actually cause more muscle growth. If you go to failure only once, there may still be some motor units or muscle fibers left not being recruited. So if you go to failure twice on a different rep range, you will hit them all for sure. Okay, the next exercise is the Smith machine split squat, and trust me, you want to try this out. Basically, it's with one leg in the front, one leg in the back, and the leg in the front is obviously doing most of the work, but trust me, the leg in the back is feeling a lot of it as well, because now you're stretching out the quads quite a lot with that back leg, because the quads are pumped up from all the previous exercises, and that will actually allow you to stretch the quads a lot better, and that stretch will also cause muscle growth if you do it under a load like this. You don't have to go really heavy with this one, because you really want to focus on that one leg that's doing the work. If you're going way too heavy, you won't be able to focus really on your leg and your core trying to work, and it will simply not feel like a bodybuilding exercise, but more like a weightlifting exercise, simply lifting the weight from A to B. And that's not what you want, so the weight increments should be quite low, allowing you to really focus on the leg that's working. Also, balance is quite important here. People like to do this one with a loose barbell sometimes, but in my opinion, when you're bodybuilding, you want to balance those exercises out. So one time you do free weight barbell squats, then combining it with a leg press, for example, or hack squats. But you don't always want to rely on only those balancing exercises. Okay, so this is one leg at a time. And even though it's one exercise, you don't want to do this back to back, because if you do, the first side still had all the oxygen, and the second side that you do doesn't, so that second one would be much more difficult. So you need a rest break in between both legs, even though a lot of people, like with biceps or so, it doesn't matter. With legs, it does very much. So let's now get started with the right one. So as you can see, it's quite a demanding exercise, even with a lighter weight. So if you go way too heavy, it will simply feel like moving the weight from down to up without feeling and getting into the muscle, because it's a very difficult exercise to master and to really feel it in the muscles. But when you do, it will pay off for sure. And also in this exercise, I like to use the knee sleeves simply to protect the joints, and also because the knee hits the floor and that really doesn't feel as nice without protection. Then it's time for the next exercise, targeting the hamstrings. I like to do the hamstrings twice in a workout. So at the beginning, I always do an isolation one, and during the workout, I like to do another one that stretches the hamstring. And in this case is the Uni-lateral Romanian dumbbell deadlifts. This allows you to use a much lighter weight compared to an actual Romanian deadlift, which can go above 200 kilos, and that will mess your grip up, your lower back up. For most people, especially for me, as I mentioned, my structure doesn't really allow for my lower back to be excluded from a lot of these movements. So I'm showing this one set of a total of 3 that I did to show you how nice of a variation you can do of the Romanian deadlift without having to go as heavy as the regular one. Alright guys, now it's time for the calves, and I like to do these leg press calf presses. This leg press allows for it very nicely. Not all leg presses allow you to do that, but I like to do this one because the weight from my back offset on the leg press is still on here. I believe it was 290 kilos, and that's perfect for the weight that I like to use, usually on a standing calf raise or a calf press like this, pretty much mimicking the effect that a standing calf raise would have. So the first set is a narrow stance, targeting the outer calves. As you can see, when you look at the movement of my calves as I'm going through the range of motion, you can see the outside is targeted a bit more. And then when we hit the next set, and I'm only, by the way, doing 2 sets of this, I recommend you doing at least 3 to 4 and then another exercise for the calves. But now I'm doing a wider stance with the calf press, and you can see that the inside of the calves are being worked more. So if you want a complete calf, or if you want to work on one side of your calf because the other side is quite strong, you now know what to do. If the outside is a weak point, then do a close stance calf press, and if the inside is a weak point, do it like this, using a wide stance. Now I'm using a pretty heavy weight, so I'm not I don't need to do a lot of work here because the calves are quite a strong point, and if I want my upper legs to be in proportion to the lower legs, my calves, I shouldn't train the calves way too much. Alright guys, I really want to thank you for watching, and thank you for the incredible support even during this tough time we're all in. Now we keep releasing new items on the web shop vintagegenetics.com. Lately we've been releasing these baseball jackets. Way more of these are coming, and they're getting out of stock quite quickly. They were quite popular, which is very nice to see, and I'm wearing one right now, to be honest. And here are some fitted shirts, a lot of different colors we came out with as well, and a lot of other stuff is available on this website. So thanks to everybody who uses this website to purchase some gym clothing. And as you can see right here, you can use code SPRING20 for 20% off all clothing. So again, thank you for watching guys, and thank you for the incredible golden support, and don't forget to stay healthy and golden.